And welcome in to Citadel Gray Line from CRM Sports. I'm John Rawl, and it's good to have you back here today on our program as we've got a great show lined up. We're going to have four participants in this week's Citadel Gray Line, as we have not only our normal contributor here to the program, Thomas Scruggs. We also have from the Post and Courier, Andrew Miller here on our All Dog program. But we're bringing on for the first time in about 12 years, he's making his debut to Citadel Gray Line, John Olshefski from the Citadel class of 1980. And we talked when he was on here many years ago about his Bulldog battleship. That's the RV that he takes to lots of Citadel contests around the entire country. And so we'll get an update on the RV and an update on all things Citadel sports from John Olszewski's perspective. He's been a president of the Brigadier Club, and he's just been a very active member in the Citadel world the last few years, a retired U.S. Army colonel, and we'll bring on him in just a second. In fact, why don't we, one by one, welcome in some of these people that I've been telling you are going to be on today's show. So we'll go in alphabetical order. We'll start off here today with Andrew Miller of the Charleston Post and Courier. There's Andrew. Hopefully, Andrew, you have had a great week.
I've had a good week, yes. Thank you for asking, John. I hope you had a good weekend as well.
I did, and well, we can't say the same about the Bulldogs in the last week. They've had to take one on the chin from the Camels.
Yeah, boy, they ran into a very big, very athletic bunch there at Johnson Haygood Stadium on Saturday in the home opener for the Bulldogs, and really you could see kind of at least in my opinion from the press box, you could see the talent difference between the two squads. Maurice Drayton, the head football coach of the Bulldogs, pointed out in the press conference on Monday before the game about how many transfers they had. I think they had 35, and 23 were from FBS conferences, and the other 11, and then 11 of those 23 were from Power 5 conferences. And they had a huge offensive line, huge defensive line, and that's really where the game was won, in my opinion. Campbell was able to move people around on both sides of the ball, and that's really how they controlled the game. I mean, Campbell went up the week before they played the Citadel, and went up to William & Mary and played them a very tight game. And William & Mary is a top 5 team in FCS this year. So I think that shows you kind of the talent level that Campbell has, that Mike Minter, their head coach, has been able to bring in. That's really the kind of the story in FCS. I think this year is going to be the number of transfers that we're going to see and with the FCS school.
We welcome in now Thomas Scruggs, our contributor to the program. I was wrong, Thomas, on my Furman prediction of having them beat the Gamecocks last week. So don't hold that against me. Are you there, Thomas?
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. I said I was wrong on my Furman prediction. I thought they would beat the Gamecocks last week. Little off on that.
Yeah, you may have been right for about 1.5 quarters, but I think I was correct on my pregame analysis.
Yes. But I think we were both spot on not thinking that the Bulldogs would probably have a good day at Johnson Haygood Saturday.
That is correct, sir. That was tough to watch, I have to admit.
Yep, tough to watch. Okay, let's talk to a guy now who is a frequent Citadel athletic event participant, as he's in the stands at just about every Citadel football game. And heck, he goes to a lot of basketball games, baseball games. If you haven't seen him, you have seen his Bulldog battleship somewhere across the Southeast. He's John Olszewski from the class of 1980, and we've got him now on the Gray Line. There you are. Welcome in, sir.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. I don't think there's anything I enjoy more than student athletes, certainly from the Citadel. I'm struggling in that world now because I think we're one of the only schools left that actually can say we actually have student athletes. So we have some decisions to make as we go forward. We always want that. But I'm watching all the forward and all movement. It's scary. But I think we compete at all the major sports, certainly. But it's just going to take a little bit of time, I think, with our current program the way it is today.
And John is a person that probably has been in on some of those heavy conversations. You've been recently the president of the Brigadier Foundation.
Yeah, I was. I just came off in July as past chair. They're 2-year terms. They're wonderful terms. It's a wonderful organization to be in. It's all about fundraising for athletic scholarships. And I'm going to be off probably a little bit, but we have to raise $4 something a year to pay for all the athletic scholarships we have, and we historically now we're raising close to $2 million through the Brigadier Foundation, and the other money has to come from general funds, and we figure that out. And we're probably in pretty better shape than most in that, but the Brigadier Foundation is the most. It's a lot of fun. But then again, I also enjoy the giving of to the Citadel Football Association, the Basketball Association, and the Diamond Dogs, the track. I love giving the money to all those because you can see benefits like right now, whereas in scholarships, it's a 4-year ordeal, and that's fine. That's what I do. But the quick fix ones are the ones you like the most.
All right. We will talk about this with you, John, as we go forward in today's show. But you also are known for that big old RV. Tell me about what your latest model of that is.
Well, the latest one now is a Umar Ventana. It's 4 feet. This is before the last time you talked. It was 34. So we've gone 14 feet in time. John, as a backstory, I had no plan on getting a fourth one until I retired. And the way this world works, one of my best buddies here in Huntsville passed away on me during the COVID, right about 2021, was 19 going into 20. And he was same above, and then I died. I had overnight, and I said to myself, man, I'm gonna wait. So we got the one we wanted, calling it quits in, and it meets all the requirements, and we love it. And they're great at all football games. I'll be at Chattanooga this weekend with it, and it's just a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And the gentleman who you said that would come, your buddy with that's not the old Clemson fan I'm hoping that you're talking about.
Oh no, he comes to the Chattanooga in the the Sanford game every year. But and on the road when I come back home to Charleston, I call it home because that's where my wife's from, Somerville. But when we come back home, we usually have different guests because I'm part owner of a skybox with Danny Court, class of '80, and Rick Cook, class of '84. So it's a double whammy for us. We get to do the whole tailgate 4 hours before the game, and then we go to the box, and then we hang after. And that's when we're busting up Coach like Ed Roy by the RV this weekend. Historically, who goes by, and I meet kids at the RV, and that's truly what I'm looking to meet in the first place is the kids.
Okay. I apologize, John. You're cutting out on me. Is he also cutting out for both Andrew and Thomas?
I can hear him.
No, I can hear him fine.
You hear him fine? Okay, all right. Maybe it's just on my end. So hopefully that's the way it is. We're going to keep trucking regardless. So let's talk about what the Citadel is going to do to rebound from this tough loss at home to Campbell. It was a 56-7 drubbing by the Campbells. The Campbell Camels, they came and stomped all over the Bulldogs. And I know the feedback early on was that our guys really didn't even belong on the same field because you had so many transfers from the FBS ranks that were on Mike Minter's team. And it just offensively just didn't, 7 points compared to 56. It wasn't a good day there. What did you get from Coach Drayton here at the weekly press conference, Andrew?
Well, I obviously sensed a little frustration from him. I think that he talked about SINS, which I thought was a great kind of acronym that he used. It's self-inflicted negative plays, negative, mistakes that the Citadel made. He talked a lot about missed tackles. He talked a lot about blown coverages. He talked a lot about, pre-snap penalties, which are things that, you could really control how you play. Those are the things you can control. Pre-snap penalties, mid tackle when it's there, and then not blown coverages in the secondary. Those are things that you control, matter what the athleticism of the other team is. And I think he was disappointed in that. And I think they're kind of go back to the drawing board and emphasize these things in practice. That's what he was really talking about Monday at the press conference. Athletically, when you play a team like that, when they're undersized against them and not as much team speed as Campbell has, he's right. You got to play a perfect game and not make these kind of mental mistakes that they made. There were some physical mistakes they made with some of the missed tackles. They got to get guys on the ground. I 100% agree with him on that. But I thought there were some positives in the game, and I know that's kind of hard to look at when you look at a 56-7 loss. I thought Dustin Fletcher got out there for the first time. I thought he threw a couple of really nice balls. He's obviously the better passer of the two. I thought Grayson Underwood, for the few series that he was in, I thought he ran the offense pretty well. But again, when you're overmatched at the offensive line of scrimmage, there's not really a whole lot your skill players can do because you just don't have the time and space that you'd have against other teams. And I got bad news for you, John. Chattanooga is just like Campbell. They have 30-plus transfers, 20-plus from the FBS, and 10 or more from Power 5 conferences. So it's going to be more of the same. And I'd love to hear what John's opinion of this is, what he thinks about, getting some transfers in here or the process here at the Brigadier Foundation and the alumni think that the Citadel could do to kind of catch up and maybe catch up a little bit quicker. I'd be very curious to hear what his opinion is, because I know what Tommy and I know what John Rawl, I know what your opinion is, but I'd be curious what his opinion is.
He's the only John. He's Colonel John. I'm just some old irrelevant John. Take it away, Olshefski.
Well, I will tell you this. If you don't mind, let me just say baseball and basketball first. And the reason I say that is because of the numbers. It's it's 14, and historically baseball runs 40 or a little bit more than that. What I'm going to say to that is this is an alumni that I've woke up now at 65 years old and said, in this current world, we are not going to be able to stay the same as we had 10 years ago. It's not going to happen. So I'll use an example of Conroy. They are both at a very healthy mix now of actual cadets and actual fifth years and actual even a couple in there that aren't, or second, third years that are not living in the barracks. And alumni that don't like that, no disrespect, they need to get over that. That day is here. And if we want to compete and not have discussions about these butt whoopings we just took, we've got to look at something different. So in fairness to Maurice, he only had one coach, really didn't get a lot of that. He took her in January, if I'm mistaken. So I think he's gonna do it. So as an alum, this is my answer. I look all coaches in the eye and say this: I want a healthy mix of Citadel cadets, and as long as I got a healthy mix of Citadel cadets in the mix, this alumni is going to be happy. And then I know this sounds so weird, but we alumni sometimes get caught up more in the haircuts and all the other stuff. And I've asked all those coaches to try their best to keep the guys in a look that looks similar to our kids, so that my alumni world doesn't get all frustrated with that. So, and as an example, Ed Conroy right now I know has more cadets on that basketball floor going out than he does anything else. And in baseball, it's the same way. Football, it's not. But football is also 65 or 63 scholarships. So my answer is we've got to change, and our operation of getting after it is not to change. Now, I can more, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, when you look at what Campbell did, there are 35 transfers, and then Chattanooga with the 35 transfers, and what Maurice Drayton brought up today, he wants to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. And I went down the Citadel roster, and there are 7 transfers, and I think only 2 are from FBS conferences. And again, in this day and age, John, I'm glad you said what you said, because I agree. If the Citadel wants to be competitive, it thinks you can't really do it the old way as much as you would like to. That is, recruit guys, bring in, and then develop them. I think you can do that, but I think there also has to be a part of your roster that are guys who have played maybe hopefully at a higher level, who are not getting playing time at those schools, who then come down to the Citadel and can come in and contribute. I'm telling you, if you've met Dustin Fletcher, he's an impressive young man, no matter what walk of life he came from before this, military, non-military. He is a super nice kid. He is super smart, and he's very congenial. He reaches out to people. He's just a guy that I know that the other guys on the team have kind of gravitated to. He's that kind of leader. So I think he's somebody that you could build around here a little bit. But I'm really glad you said that, John, because, again, I think the Citadel wants to be competitive, and I know they do, and I know they can be. They've got to change a little bit the way they do things, and I hope they will. And another thing that I would bring up is just the cost of attendance. If you look at all these, a lot of other schools, and I've done a little bit of research on this, College of Charleston being the prime example, they're giving their student athletes a little bit more money than is allowed under the scholarship, just to cover just costs of just general stuff. And if you look at guys who are not, the graduate transfers, like Dustin Fletcher, he can't afford to live downtown with the money that the Citadel gave him. He's living, I don't know where he's living. I think he's living in West Ashley. Living at home, and the other kid, Malik Taylor, I believe he's in Creek. So I mean, there's got to be a kind of a cost of living thing.
Absolutely.
That cadets can use to kind of get their housing. The guys who live off campus. Those are the ones I'm talking about.
We're going to continue this. John, let me put you on pause for just a second. We got an exciting show. We want to welcome in people's feedback here to today's program. If you've got something to say, 843-779-8496 is how you can text us here at Citadel Gray Line. And this program is packaged each week by IPS Packaging and Automation, as well as we are presented in part by Daybreak Adult Care Services, Pedigo Electric Bikes with locations in both Aiken and in West Columbia, a.k.a. Soda City. And we are also brought to you by Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning. You can give them a call if you're in the Midlands of South Carolina at 803-281-2974, as they'll help you with sewer repair, water line repair, gas line repair. They'll help drain clean your drain, water heater repair, and much, much more. It's a great Columbia-based company, FranklinPlumbingSC.com. Their number again to call 24 hours a day, as they have emergency service available Monday through Thursday, 803-281-2974, the number for Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning, a proud presenter of Citadel Gray Line here on this now 16th season that we've been doing this show. How did I do with that, Thomas?
Outstanding, John.
Okay, great. Now back to John Olshefski with his feedback on what Andrew was just talking about.
I'm so happy that Drew is speaking the truth as far as I'm concerned. But I just want to say a couple things in that. I'm glad we set it out this $900 thing. We've got to figure out a way to give these guys more to, and I don't think it's a figure out. I truly believe the money's there to give these fifth-year kids and some of the others make up a number, 1,600, 1,700, 1,900. I have confidence that we can raise the money to do that. And I don't know what the holdup there is, but it's out there. We need to get after it. But I do want to say a couple things on this talent thing and these, 50, all this other stuff we're talking about. Let's remember what year it was. We went to Alabama, and it was 10-10 at halftime. And let's remember the difference between athletic ability at that time is no different with Alabama team versus our team than what we saw at Campbell. Actually, I would argue Alabama's team then is still better than Campbell ever was or ever will be. And what I'm saying is we were 10-10 at half. And why? It's why because we run the triple option. It's why because we were allowed to do crackback. I mean, those side blocks. I just went blank what they're called.
Cut blocks.
I don't want to pump. What was that?
Cut blocks.
Cut blocks. And that we've been handicapped by the system for not doing that. So we got to come up. We got to invent ourselves to something else. But I do struggle with the athletic differences, and I want to say that any help in the crack thing because it's not ourselves. We competed very well with Georgia Tech. We beat Georgia Tech and Georgia Tech. We beat Carolina, and that's just 15-18. And then Alabama was intertwined in there. And all of them have more athletic ability than we do, better than Campbell. I would argue all three of those teams but with our handicap, now, I have him 3/4 game only at first down. I can tell right now, the numbers right. We had 10 against Alabama at half. And that's why, because we ran the ball 3 grounds, 4 grounds, whatever. We've got to fix that, and it's coming. Second thing I want to say before I forget, I did notice a positive. We made some pretty massive hits on that field when we finally could get to tackle them. There were some pretty bone-jarring hits, and that reminds me a lot of the Mike Houston first part of Brent's times when our kids were flying around the field and they got pumped. And I will say, I thought we had more hits this game than certainly against Georgia Southern, where they were aggressive if they could get to them. And I think that Maurice spoke to that. It's about positioning and timing and all the above. And I do concur. So I'll leave it at first downs and I'll leave it at hitting. And we got to raise this money, this per diem thing to make it a better deal. I mean, do you know the story behind this kid we got named Q? That's 6'10", 245 coming from Vanderbilt in basketball. Okay? He could have won Penn State with an NIL deal. He's come to play Coach Conroy. And full mechanical engineer from Vanderbilt. He ain't going to be up nobody in the Southern Conference in basketball. How do we do that? Well, because he loves Coach Conroy. We got those intangibles we got to keep dealing with.
Yeah, I agree, and I love the fact that we have 3 Citadel graduates who are head coaches in the 3 big sports: baseball, basketball, and football. They know the system, they know how it works, they know how to navigate it, they know how to work with the kids to help them navigate through it. So I think that's a huge deal. And if I'm not mistaken, that might be the first. I've been in a newspaper since 1989. And I think that's the first time all
Absolutely.
3 of the major sports have had a Citadel graduate heading up their programs. And I think that is big. And I hope that the alumni is patient with Maurice Drayton, because I believe that he's going to get the job done because, A, he's an outstanding recruiter. B, he is incredibly organized, and his attention to detail I've seen during practices and during scrimmage and things like that is really at an elite level. So I think he's going to get it done. But there's got to be a little bit patient. And he's got to figure some things out too, because this is the first time he's a head coach, and it's going to take people a little bit of time to get used to being a head coach. It's not an easy thing to do because people just think it's X's and O's and all that, and it's not. It's dealing with dummies like me in the media. It's dealing with the alumni, dealing with the unique situation that the Citadel is as a military school.
Yep.
Well, I have to say, for Maurice Drayton's sake, I found a new appreciation and respect for him at his weekly press conference Monday, and I feel a little bad. I feel bad because I have a newer model vehicle than Coach Drayton does. As he mentioned, he drives a 2014 pickup truck, and it doesn't have air conditioning working right now. And this guy was hanging out in the low country in the months of June and July without air conditioning, and he talked about that at his press conference, why he would take phone calls and he couldn't roll the window down to get air going in because that would really not be good for the recruiting type phone calls and important phone calls he made. So it was like living back in 1st Battalion and Delta Company for Maurice Drayton when he didn't have air conditioning back in the mid-1990s. And so I have a new respect for the coach because he still has an unair-conditioned truck that he's driving around campus and beyond.
Well, that was pretty. I will tell you, he's got some really good stories he tells at his press conferences and things that we all take away. That's one of them. I just thought that was tremendous. What a way to, and spin's not the right word, but he has a good way of taking us in. And Andrew is a writer, and he does do what he does, and you guys can ask him pretty tough questions. I mean, were we not in shock to week 1 when he walked out there and just were not that good? And I didn't have any problem with it, but I was shocked. And then once that about it, and it is what it is. I mean, I don't think it's for a lack of effort right now. I think it's just whatever. But I do appreciate his stories. And I like the T-shirt he wore. I mean, somebody asked, "Well, you wearing that T-shirt with the eyeball on?" I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. Did you ask that question, Andrew?
I did not. I think that was Dan from Channel 2. He asked him about that. He said, "Don't blink. Adversity is going to come at you, and just don't blink. Kind of stand your ground." And I thought that was a really good message as well. Yeah, I've been really impressed with him. He's been very, very forthcoming. Maybe a little bit honest at times, I felt, but been refreshing, and it certainly makes me take notice with some of the events where it's just a lot of coach talk. But Maurice is not the kind of guy who's going to do a lot of coach talk. He's going to tell you the truth, and whether that truth is what you want to hear or you don't want to really hear it, he's going to tell it. And I think that's the way to go. You got to be upfront with your players and with your fan base and let them know what's going on.
Well, I'm no John Olshefski, but I actually have scouted out the Citadel's upcoming opponent. I went to the Chattanooga University of North Alabama football game, the Mocs season opener, and Chattanooga should have won that dadgum game, but UNA, to their credit, ended up winning that, I think, by 2 touchdowns in Florence, Alabama. And Chattanooga, I thought, well, good Lord, this is a game I think the Citadel could win here in a couple of weeks. But lo and behold, Chattanooga this past weekend really surprised me with a win over the Kennesaw State Owls there at Finley Stadium. So, Andrew, I thought I had a pretty good grasp of Chattanooga after seeing them play in person. Lorenzo Ward, the defensive coordinator, the father of a Citadel alum. Where do we stand with Chattanooga in your opinion? Both of you, John, and since you're a neighbor of Chattanooga, you live in Huntsville, Alabama. What's going on with the Mocs?
Well, I'll go first, Andrew. Okay, Northern Alabama is 60 miles west of me, and it's pretty impressive. They've only been an FCS school for 2 years now. They dominated at the level below us. And let me make this clear: I am not interested in going backwards in football. I hear there's still commentary on people coming up on the internet thinking we should go back to whatever Division 1A, whatever those other ones are below us. I'm not interested in that. We'll figure it out the way. But I was kind of taken back when Northern Alabama beat Chattanooga, and then Chattanooga turns around and kicks butt this week. So and then of course I get caught up like anybody else. I fight it about all these transfers because I struggle. This is what I say, and I know this isn't right, but I say, well, obviously they weren't good enough to play at that level, or they wouldn't be at Chattanooga. And nobody likes to hear that. But so what? I mean, I follow like it. So what? But now when I saw the talent at the Camels, it kind of the shut on that. But I'm concerned about Chattanooga. But if you look at history, us playing Chattanooga, we usually play very well their play. Beat them 2 years ago. We beat them there, and then historically they beat us by less than a touchdown in our place. But after watching the first 2 games, I'm still positive. I think we're going to give them a run for their money. But after the first 2 games, we're human. So I'll leave it at that. On to you, Andrew.
I think it's going to be interesting to see who Maurice Drayton starts at quarterback and how he handles if he's going to run multiple quarterbacks. I know that's kind of a subject that I've been fixated on in the preseason and now here after the first 2 games. But Maurice Drayton said it: if you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any, and I agree with that. You got to have one guy who's going to be your guy, and then kind of build that offense and your game plans around him. So I'm interested to see who he starts at quarterback, and then how he navigates the kind of the dual use of each quarterback, and if he uses both of them, or if he just goes with one and says, this is the guy, this is our guy, and we're going to go with him. That will be interesting to me, number one. Obviously, when you talk about Chattanooga, you got to talk about Jay Person. He's the best defensive lineman, maybe not only in the Southern Conference, but in all of FCS. The guy's going to be playing on Sundays. He has been just a one-man wrecking crew for the Mocs for the last 2-3 seasons. In the way they run their defensive schemes, you got to keep him away and keep him kind of out of making plays. One of the things that press Monday was interesting. They're going to try to run at instead of run away because he got such quickness and speed. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But I think we're going to see him open it up just a little bit. And I think, unlike John, and I don't know if this was what you were talking about before we got on air or not, but you talked about throwing on first down, and I think you were a little bit against it. And I'm like, yeah, throwing on first down once in a while, I don't have a big issue with that because they don't expect that. And maybe you get some different kind of coverages that you don't see when they know it's going to be a passing situation. But again, you got to get Cooper Wallace engaged. You got to get him going. You got to get him going early. And that's going to be a tough, tall task against that defensive line that Chattanooga has.
So I'd like to ask you, Andrew, your thoughts, because he's special to me because I've known him now for 3 years. Coach keeps bringing him up, Varney. At Georgia Southern, when he came into that game in the fourth quarter, and I know it might have been second string, I don't care. He had a little bit of electricity to him that was special. Coach, where he came across the ball behind yards, and then we had 15 penalties. He's electric to me. And I know they don't rank him as this one or the two quarterbacks, but what do you think of the use of him a little bit more?
Well, I think it's a good idea, and I think they're going to do it. And that was addressed in the press conference on Monday as well. He went back to a 90s reps here. Court Stewart with the Pittsburgh Steelers called him Slash. He played running back, played his back, and he played a bit of quarterback. And I think that Varney Lehman is absolutely, they can use him in all three of those capacities. And I think you got to get that guy the ball because you're absolutely right. He's got some speed to him, which is something that the Citadel kind of lacks, especially on the perimeter, I think, a little bit. And getting the ball into his hands more is absolutely a great idea.
And I think I heard Coach Drayton reference him as a sort of a Swiss Army knife potentially for this football team.
Yeah. And let me bring up another guy, Amon Green, who, was a quarterback against Furman, and I thought showed some flashes. I think they need to get him on the field a little bit more as well, too. I don't know what's keeping him from not being on the field more and not getting the ball more, because he's another really good athlete that can make dynamic plays, make those chunk yardage plays that the Citadel really needs to make.
We are talking all things Citadel sports here on Citadel Gray Line, and we have some great partners that bring that to us. I'm going to tell you about one of them in a second, but a reminder that you can reach us here at the Gray Line not only when we broadcast each Wednesday, but if you need to reach us any other time, you're welcome to do that. We have a text line available for you to text in at 843-779-8496, 843-779-8496, and we'll get those messages really throughout the week and share with you what comes in. In fact, we got a few that we want to bring up. We talked on a recent show about Raleigh Webb, who this texter let us know Raleigh Webb was cut by the New England Patriots and may make a practice squad. Well, texter, you were absolutely right. He ended up signing a deal, and he's now on the Miami Dolphins practice squad. So we wish Raleigh Webb, former Citadel receiver, all the best on his efforts to get back on an active duty roster in the NFL. And another text came in, and this says, congratulations on season 16. And yes, we started this show back in 2008, and we are keeping on trucking here at Citadel Gray Line. And we couldn't do it without some great partners, and some of those great partners include Coker Day and his line of businesses, Daybreak Adult Care Services, and Pedigo Electric Bikes with locations in Aiken and Soda City. Cadet General Scruggs, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit more about what Coker's got going on with these two different businesses.
Well, I definitely have not used, thankfully, Daybreak Adult Care Services, John. But definitely a well-known business here in the Midlands of South Carolina.
But you can't wait to.
Well, that's right. That's right. I can't speak from personal experience about Pedigo. I know I've spoken about it in the past two episodes. The Pedigo electric bike there in Soda City, also a location in Aiken. That location in Soda City, right near the Riverwalk. That's a good time. That's a great way to spend a couple hours on a Saturday. Go see Coker and rent one of those electric bikes. Of course, Coker would rather you buy one of those electric bikes. I don't make as much as John Rawl. Maybe I could afford to buy an electric bike. I'll just rent it.
Yeah. Well, I wish you well on your pursuit to make as much money as I make. Pedigo Soda City, owned by Citadel alumnus Coker Day from the class of 1995, and you'll go there and be treated like family. They are the Midlands of South Carolina's foremost electric bike expert. They put their hearts into helping you find the perfect electric bike and get the most out of it for many years to come, as they have the Pedigo line of electric bicycles right there in West Columbia, South Carolina. And you can also find their Aiken location. Go to the website PedigoElectricBikes.com to learn more about Coker's locations and really what electric bikes are all about. And maybe just one of these days here at Citadel Gray Line, thanks to Thomas Scruggs' budget, we can have a free Pedigo electric bike giveaway. How does that sound?
I didn't realize it was my budget, John, but okay.
Yeah, it's all on you. John Olshefski, are you an electric bike kind of guy?
No, but now that I know that we have a Citadel brother that is in that space, I'll definitely look at that. But I have friends that have them, so they must like them.
Yeah, I think they do a good job for sure. Let's talk about where we go. I know we've mentioned a little bit here with you, John. You've been the president in just the last few years of the Brigadier Club. What is the best pitch you can give our audience on the importance of the Brigadier Club?
Well, it's fundraising for student athletes, and the more money we can raise for student athletes, the less money we have to get from the general fund, and the money we get more back to the school do what they need to do. And it's not, I don't sell, we'll get here. There's many schools in the country that they raise enough money to pay for all athletic scholarships. Alabama's one of them, and some big schools. But I can remember once upon a time when we raised 1.1 million. Now we're closer to 2 million, and that it's all about the student athletes. And I have to make this pitch. We are always chasing the big donors, and we want big donors. But the big guy or gal just joining the Brigadier Foundation at the $150 or $65 level and go all the way up. And there's some bennies that come with each one of those levels, but well worth it. And especially when you get a chance to talk to the student athlete that's in school and how happy and gracious they are for us giving that kind of money. But what I like about the Brigadier Foundation is you're paying for athletic scholarships, and then you get to see those kids graduate. And when they graduate, they're special. And they come to my RV a lot. And there's something special about it. I love all the cadets, but there's something special about the student athlete. And so the Brigadier Foundation is the raiser of the money for the athletic scholarships. We need money in many, many different places. Anyway, that's my pitch.
All right. And the impressive thing, John, is I don't think you were a cadet student athlete, right?
No, I was a wannabe. My favorite story, I've told it numerous times, is baseball. I walked on in baseball, and I was a really pretty good hitter. And I went 2 for 3 in a scrimmage on a day, and comes up time of year. I got cut, and even if the cell phones are not back, I called Dad. And what do I do? You need to go see the coach and find out. I went 2 for 3, hit it hard, walked in, and never forget it. And Coach Chalport said, with his spit coming out of the side of his mouth, "Boy, you don't run to first base 3.5 seconds, and you ain't a left-handed pitcher." Well, that's me. I don't run to first base at 3.5, and I'm certainly not a left-handed pitcher. But so it was there, and we have this issue in the core about sometimes negative relationships with the core athletes, and it's sad that we have those issues, because if the core knew how hard the athlete works from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock every day, they earn that scholarship. And I think if the athlete understood what the core has to go through on getting ready for parade and doing all the parades we have to do and all the Saturday morning inspections. But I don't know what the issue is, because when I was a cadet, I actually wanted to spend time. Well, I went to every football game. I didn't go on the road because I was a knob, but I went to every baseball game. I went to every basketball game. And I understand today's different, where, you got your computer, your phones. But I have yet to figure out what would, other than study, and we know the GPA is higher than it's ever been. Now we can say it's inflated or whatever. I can argue that. But because Bernard didn't have many pros. I think 7 was the only 4 there was back in the day. We have a bunch of them. But all this to say, I wish there was a little better camaraderie between the core and the athletes, because I'm a core guy, but I love my athletes, and I appreciate what they do. So thanks for that question, John.
Glad to help out. Anything else you want to say? Because I don't want to cut off the colonel.
Well, I just, I'm running my mouth, and I'm so tickled that Andrew's on here, and obviously Thomas. I can't believe I got an honest to God sports writer I'm on the call with him, because I am intrigued by you guys. I actually worked. I'm not a very good writer, and I actually worked on the Brigadier newspaper when I was a cadet, and I got on there because my mother pushed me on there, because she said that'll be a way to help me learn how to write better. And I was the sports editor for the newspaper at the Citadel for 2 years, and I got a lot of help in writing the articles, but I was fascinated by that world. So I'm just on with Andrew. It's a big deal. And hopefully, Andrew, I get to meet you when I'm in town the next time. I hope you come over by the RV and let me introduce you to my friends.
Thomas and I, why don't we take off? Thomas and I will just take off, and you two can have a love fest.
Yes. I love John. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you, so I don't even want to hear it.
I will definitely make a point of getting over there and meeting you. Yeah, I was very fortunate in my life. I was 16 years old. I went to sports better. I ran cross country and track and up sports writer and wrote some story. And I said, yeah, I think I could do a better job. And he said, oh yeah, well, come out Friday night and cover the football game with me, and let's see. And I was 16 years old, and I've been doing what I've loved to do ever since then. I've been very, very fortunate in my life to actually do what I love to do for 40 plus years. So yeah, it's nobody ever rolls their eyes or goes to sleep when I tell them what I do for a living. My wife says I'm great at a party, because I can just tell stories till the sun comes up.
And John, if you don't mind, could I tell one quick story, because it has to do with the Citadel. And it has to do with the Citadel inspiring me to go into the career that I've been doing since I got out of that place. And I've been basically a journalist since I've left the Citadel. And I have gone on to publish magazines and newspapers. And I've been a writer. I've been on TV. I've done all kind of crazy stuff. I have a master's in journalism. But it all happened because when I was a knob at the Citadel, I had an English professor tell me that I didn't belong in college. At the Citadel, by the way. He told me I didn't belong in college because I was so terrible at English. And I failed English like a lot of cadets. Thomas, raise your hand.
No, sir.
I proudly failed English at the Citadel. You did too, John?
I did.
I proudly
That's
failed
why I
English
went to work for the newspaper.
Twice. I failed it twice. And thank God for the University of South Carolina summer school. I would never have gotten out of English during my college time. But that smart aleck, terrible attitude a professor gave me, I said, I'm going to show that guy. And I still hadn't made it like Andrew has, but I've been somehow getting through this career for a long time. But we all have our own crazy war stories. I didn't see you. Thomas, did you fail English at the Citadel?
No, sir. I never made lower than a C, John. Of course, that must have been that quality education you received at Lexington High School.
Maybe so, but in defense of John and I, back in our day, and it's probably still this way at the Citadel, English at the Citadel consisted of getting a book about that thick of English literature, and we're already starved for sleep and everything else to read. Reading was a big challenge as a knob, and you're asking me to read books that thick and then sit there and write papers on, in those days, a typewriter or word processor, and expect to do good? Heck no, I didn't do good. I failed it proudly. John's kind of proud of his F, because I think you did all right professionally too.
Well, Major British Writers, the title of the class called Major British Writers scared me to death anyway. I mean, it was that was sophomore year, Major British Writers. I mean, come on. Anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah. They're no Andrew.
I'm glad
absolutely.
to see we have all these writers.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good, but I really don't like it. I like running my mouth better. Andrew Miller's a heck of a writer, and you can check out his work. In fact, Andrew, you do so good. When I get on my smartphone sometimes, and I go to the good Google option, it actually shows up with your bylines and Citadel stories showing up on my Google searches. That's pretty impressive.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. I'm sorry I keep looking down. My puppy just had an accident right underneath right underneath the desk.
I mean, come on, guy. Our first week we were on, you had a hurricane, and now you got a real disaster. So we're going to have to get the Quebec Nordiques #1 fan a better setup here. Thomas Scruggs, we haven't heard a lot from Thomas today. What can you tell us as we kind of wrap things up here on the Gray Line this week?
Well, I would just say, John, I'm cautiously optimistic about our upcoming game. Their quarterback does worry me a little bit. I think he was 23 or 28 last week. And then when I hear they have a bunch of transfers, you kind of get a little nervous based on the last 2 games. So, but again, I'm eager to get into SoCon play and see. I shouldn't say I don't care how we stack up against the Georgia Southerns and the Campbells of the world. But I do care how we stack up against the rest of the SoCon, how that's going to look. So I guess we'll get a good picture of that this Saturday.
I was going to say, one of the keys I think here is going to be the Citadel's ability to get pressure on the Chattanooga quarterback, something they did not do a great job of against Campbell. Now, I know a lot of times against Campbell, they only rushed 3 guys. They didn't blitz a lot, but it's kind of imperative on to take quarter uncomfortable this Saturday, I believe.
And before we wrap up, I want to remind everybody about one of our great partners here at this program. It's been for a long time, IPS Packaging. IPS Packaging and Automation, a name you can trust since 1976. Derek Murdoch and Company have been providing manufacturers and e-commerce companies with the very best packaging products and automation in the entire industry. IPS offers a complete line of packaging products like stretch films and 3M tapes, corrugated boxes, strapping, and equipment automation. IPS Packaging and Automation will analyze and then streamline your current methods to improve your packaging process. Give them a call at 800-277-7007 to learn more, or visit IPS Packaging and Automation at ipack.com. IPS Packaging and Automation, based in Fountain Inn, South Carolina, is a proud supporter of Citadel Athletics. So, gentlemen, we have come to an end of this week's program. I thank all of you for being a part of our program, and John Olshefski in Huntsville, who, by the way, at one time was a Huntsville board member, a city council member there of Huntsville. I think you only served 1 term and said, "I'm out of here."
That's right.
Because you wanted to support those Bulldogs. Right. Did you give the Citadel as the reason you left?
Well, I got a really good job, but at the same time, it was handicapping me on my getting to football.
Okay, well, we don't want that. Again, look for John. He always has that. Usually, I won't say always. Almost always has his gigantic RV. Oftentimes, the only Citadel RV at our athletic contests, and usually you have some fun going on outside of there. So check him out. And he's quite noticeable, kind of a big guy like me. I guess it comes with the name John. But look for him in Chattanooga. Usually Chattanooga always has a nice little tailgate before the game. They have a pavilion there at Chattanooga that offers a nice pregame meal, I think, or something like that you can show up for and buy a ticket if you're a Citadel supporter. So check that out. And John, safe travel on one of your 2 so-called close games on your schedule this year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you very much. And Andrew, we appreciate you. We look forward to your coverage in the Post and Courier, postandcourier.com. And then you can also find what's your social media handle these days?
AP Miller _ at PNC.
AP Miller. I need to write that down. I ask you that not every week, because some weeks we miss you. But some weeks we get you on here. But
yeah, last week was unexpected.
No, we've already talked about it. You're good. We're glad to get you any way we can. Andrew Miller, Post and Courier, and Thomas Scruggs, not wearing Citadel colors today, wearing some kind of shirt I don't really recognize. But you have a great week. Yeah, you have a great week, and we look forward to getting you back here for next week, which will be another road game. And to my knowledge, the first time the Citadel has ever played at South Carolina State. So we'll have that breakdown of next week when we get together. Have a great week, sir.
You do think, John.
All right. And, again, Citadel Gray Line, powered by our great partners. We thank you all for doing that. And we will see you back here. Remember, you can catch a podcast of this show as we're available in podcast form on Apple iTunes. Also, you can get us in Spotify and more. Just search Citadel Gray Line. And the YouTube version of the video of this show is available on YouTube at CRM Sports, the video channel there, as we'll put this up each and every week. Until we see you back here next week, thank you for being a part of our all-dog show that we call Citadel Gray Line. Have a great week.